What's up guys, Marcus Bird here. Haven't been on the channel in a while because of what's happening. Many things going on, many things. I thought I would do a walk and talk video while giving you a general update. So first things first, as you guys know, there is a storm near Jamaica. It's expected to make landfall this evening or tomorrow potentially, but the weather people don't really seem to know exactly what's happening. We're definitely gonna get some rain, but it's been moving so slow because Monday they started talking about it hitting like Wednesday, Thursday, and now it's Sunday, almost a week later. So either way, you know, I thought I would take a little walk up the hill before this period of rain comes for a couple of reasons. First reason is that when you're preparing for a storm, this neighborhood is full of dogs. When you're preparing for a storm, you're really trapping yourself inside the house. So you seal the windows, you seal the doors as best as possible. You do as much as possible to keep the elements out. So that means the house is going to be more stuffy after a while, and depending on how many things you have, it can feel a bit claustrophobic. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you feel comfortable when you're inside your house. So when the wind is beating or what's happening, you know that you're protected. So I did all that the last couple of days, and I'm really feeling it as I'm talking to you because wow, the last 48 hours non-stop, you know, putting up boards, getting stuff for the house, hardware, and then you know you're thinking what's going to happen. They say it's going to land Friday, it doesn't come Friday, they say Saturday. So a lot of stuff going on. So anyways, I'm walking. My route that I walk is about 1.5 miles up the hill, and I'm feeling it right now, man. Okay, so let me just give you guys a general update. So this is how, if you can see the sky, you can see the dark clouds coming in. So I don't really have that much time before the rain starts. I think maybe I have about 45 minutes because I've been walking on the hill for years, and even though I have a storm system coming, I can watch the rain and I usually know when it's gonna fall. So right now I think I have another half an hour, 40 minutes, so I can get up the hill and down before any rain starts. So what are some of the updates that I want to tell you? Alright, first things first, I was hoping to do this on Friday on the radio. Oh, if you look over here, you can see that, right? That's the sea down there, and you can see the system or the rain moving in. Alright, so guys, I'm going to give you an update on what's been going on with me. Very powerful news, very interesting stuff. Alright, so first things first is that a week from now, I am flying to the United Arab Emirates, right? Going to a city called Sharjah, which is 15 minutes from Dubai. And it's because of some amazing things that came together, which I'm going to explain. The first thing is that in 2023, a Jamaican, my brethren, his name is Kwame McPherson, became the historic first winner, the overall winner of what's called the Commonwealth Short Story Prize. And this is pound for pound the most competitive short story writing competition on earth, because all the countries of the Commonwealth enter, and people from 4 regions around the planet try to win this prize. And Kwame came first. And in doing so, he was flown to Buckingham Palace to meet the Queen, and he did all kinds of other crazy stuff. His short stories now being optioned as a feature film, good things, right? And I congratulated him because if you want to look at the short story competition, it's like the World Cup of short story events, as I said, right? World Cup. And he won it in 2023, and I got shortlisted in 2018. So if he won the World Cup, I reached the semifinals. You see me? Alright, so I reached out to him after he won. I was just congratulating him because I just like to see when somebody's winning and raising a Jamaican flag high. And we made a link there. I got to read the story, and as soon as I read the story, I was like, yep, this is why it won. And then we're just communicating online, and I was just saying, good job, man, you did a great job. And then one day I was at Dub Club here in Kingston, and I just heard Marcus, and it was Kwame. So we met in person and we just built a connection there. We have very similar viewpoints on how we want to promote the literary industry in Jamaica. Kwame wants to make it sexy and fun. I want to put a lot of noise on it because when people do very well in literature here in Jamaica as creatives, we don't really hear much about it. And the other thing is that when people do very well as writers here, they usually leave Jamaica. So most of the top writers who've had published books, award-winning books, all those things, like they don't live in Jamaica. So you don't know them. So they're not in the mix, they don't really talk to anybody. And they may come down for some very upper class, upper echelon kind of events where the general public may not go en masse. So you just don't really have a sense of who they are. So everybody in Jamaica knows who like Stephen King is. And we knew that before social media. But here, not everybody would know who the top writers in Jamaica are. Alright, so with that said, that's how we made our connection, right? And on top of that now, early this year, Kwame got to go to Abu Dhabi. He was the honored guest at the Abu Dhabi Book Fair 2025. And Abu Dhabi, is in the UAE. And he was a guest of honor. He said he was just treated to all the top class treatment, this to that. And he messaged me when he was there, he's like, yo, I'm in Abu Dhabi right now. And I was like, oh man, get some video, get some footage, get some pictures. Like try and share the experience, share the business class flights, share the hotel room, like let people know this is what an author, a writer can achieve, with their mind. And he wasn't able to do much of that, but we planted those seeds. And then what happened now after that is when he came back, he said that there's another book fair happening in Dubai later in the year, and he said he wants to go to Jamaican delegation to represent. And then he said that he has my name on the list. So I just said, okay, cool, man, thank you for putting my name on the list. And I mean, in my mind, I'm like, that's a cool possible outcome. I was like, I don't know anything about it, but I said it's a cool possible outcome, right? So anyways, that was months ago. That was maybe like end of April or May or something like that, right? Because I saw him just after he came back from Dubai. Anyways, I've been having lots of different challenges in my life, as I've said in my videos over the years when I met them, bad health issues. And I've been doing all these things to try and fix it and just stabilize my life. So a lot of that was going on, and that's also a part of why I think I haven't been really consistent with videos, because for months on end sometimes you just don't have that power within you. Even when I went to Medellin in early this year, the last time, even when I went to Medellin, I wasn't feeling like as excited as I felt in 2023. Like I wasn't, because I was having bad issues with my body, and I was just like, man, I don't have the same kind of fire when I'm making this content. But anyways, so I ended up going to Massachusetts in July. Spent 2 weeks with my sister. Amazing experience. It was like a reset point. I was really crashing out, man. Like I was stressed. I had tried to do some projects with some different companies. Those fell through. It seemed like everybody I was emailing wasn't answering me. It seemed like every opportunity I was chasing was falling flat. And just everything just wasn't working out. It was very, very stressful. And I could feel the pressure on my mind, I could feel the pressure on my body. And then one day I got a phone call from Kwame. And Kwame says, yo, the Dubai people, they want you. And I was like, the Dubai people? And I was like, what Dubai people? Because I didn't even remember it. And he said, remember I told you about the delegation I want to bring to Dubai, man? And I said, oh yeah, the Dubai thing. He's like, yeah, man, they want you, look out for an email. So I said to myself, okay, interesting. Now at this time, what you wouldn't know is that at this time, I was just in a very, very low mental place. Like, not depressed, but just feeling very low, I was like frazzled. I was kind of at my wit's end. I just wasn't sure where certain things in my life were going. And I was very fortunate to be able to go to Massachusetts to chill with my sister, because Her main goal was just for me to be comfortable. She said, Marcus, while you're here, just sleep, relax. There's food in the fridge, anything you want. I just want you to be calm and relax. And it was this big reset point for me because we got to spend a lot of time together as brother and sister. And I'd never spent that much time with her as an adult in her own home. You know, I see her when she travels, or maybe we'll link up at different places and occasions. This is where the hill gets steep now. And we would talk. But we spent time together, we talked about things, and it really affected me. It gave me like a reset point to think about the future, about stability, about the way to look at my own life, among other things, right? Okay. So, during the time I was in Massachusetts, I got a call from Kwame, and Kwame, as I just said, told me about this Dubai thing. And I was like, okay. But I'm the kind of person that if I don't get an email, I'm not telling anybody. So I'm still, doing stuff in Massachusetts, just meeting people, hanging out, thinking about my life, trying to calm down my mind, calm down my body, relax. And then the day, 2 days before I was supposed to leave, I got an email. And it says, we're honored to invite you as a guest author at the 2025 Sharjah International Book Fair, which is in November 5th to 16th. So in 1 week. And when I got this email, it said, they're gonna fly you there, they're gonna put you in 5-star accommodations, and the kind of people that have been at the Sharjah International Book Fair are Oscar winners, Nobel Prize winners, literary giants, publishers. Also people like Trevor Noah have been there, Steve Harvey, Mohamed Salah the footballer, Shah Rukh Khan, India's most famous actor and a billionaire. These are the kind of people that are going to be there. And we, myself and Kwame, are going to be in that company. So at that moment, I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Because I was just in this low place and now I have this opportunity. But that was in July. So I have July, August, September. The end of July. So it's like 3.5 months. So I said to myself, man, I have 3.5 months to get my mind right around this incredible opportunity. So I say that to say I was going to use this last 2 weeks and really push to try and get some sponsors, try and get some stuff going, to try and start telling the narrative, and then boom, the storm comes. But here's what's powerful about it all, is that when I realized I had this opportunity, it also made me realize that if I want to get to a new level, if I want to get to a new stage of reality, I have to become a new person. The person I was in Massachusetts cannot be the person that I am when I land in Dubai in about 8 days from now. You can't be that person, right? You have to be on a different frequency. In some of my videos that I've been making, one of my videos I said is that when I was in Medellin earlier this year, I had a moment. There's an event called Ciclovia, which is this walking, running, cycling event. They shut down a couple streets in the city. Oh! I didn't even see the dog yet. You alright, doggy? Yo, I didn't even see the dog. Man ready for bite me. Anyway. Yo, chill. Chill, doggy. Chill. Alright. Alright, so. Whew. I'm gonna keep talking. My hands are just a little tired. So, at Ciclovia, it's a running, walking, and cycling event, right? And what I love about this event is that when I was in Medellin the first time, and I went to Ciclovia, so the first time was 2023. First time I went to Ciclovia, I felt like part of the city. I felt like part of the community. I felt like I lived there. There was something very warm and endearing about being around all these families, being around all these cyclists, these runners, You could see all the different kinds of people in the city, and I just felt like Medellin was home. That's how I felt in 2023, the first time I went, right? When I went back early this year, in January, I was having a lot of health problems, bad health symptoms, and I wasn't as energetically vibrant. I was still meeting people, I was still having a great time, but at the end of the day, I still had these issues and they're really bothering me. But I would still go to the ciclovias, and the ciclovias have a route. The first time I did it, I just walked to a certain point and I stopped. I didn't know how long it was, and I would just, walk with some of the people, maybe like a mile and a half, and I stopped. But this time when I was in Medellin, I said, you know what, I want to walk the whole way. And the second one I went to 4, because I was there for a month. The second one I went to, I ended up going all the way down to the end. And I got to walk through the city, I got to walk through different neighborhoods, and Medellin is a beautiful city. And I remember when I reached the end of a ciclovia, I could just see the rest of the city going out into the distance. And I said, wow, there's so much I don't know about the world and places. That's what I said that time. And the last one that I went to before I came back home, when I walked to the end, I didn't feel like I had gotten to the end of that road. I felt like I was at the start of a new beginning. And I can't tell you exactly what it was. I just could see it and feel it in my mind. I got this taste that I was approaching a new dimension of reality. That I was phasing or shifting into something that was very close, but I wasn't fully there yet energetically for it to make everything in my life change. And what's fascinating about that is that I could feel it. I got this feeling like I was living in like a high-rise apartment, and that everything I had was provided for. I had no worries financially, and all of my creative endeavors were like moving in the right direction. I was meeting the right kind of people, and the right kind of things were happening. This is how I felt. And I made a video that I can't find now, but it was a video declaring that feeling and that process out loud. Because when I left the ciclovia, I went in front of this really scenic building, and I was making these couple videos, and one of them I was just talking about the future I see myself living, the kind of people I see myself talking to, the kind of opportunities I'm engaging in. These are all the things that I said to myself in this video because of how I was feeling about this new dimension. I'm talking about this new dimension because I had this feeling I was going to enter a new dimension before any of this book stuff, before Kwame went to Abu Dhabi, before any of it, right? So, this feeling of a new dimension links directly to what I'm talking about today. Because what ended up happening is that my life didn't really change. I made some big headway with some potential projects. There are all these things I was thinking about trying to do, and they kept falling through. I had this meeting, I'd have a meeting with like a bank to do some work, it would fall through. I had a meeting with a car company that I pitched and fell through. I had a meeting with a company that has a therapy that could potentially help me and change my life. That fell through, right? Everything I was doing felt like it was falling through. And that sense of the new dimension was lost for a little bit. Because, when I'm in Medellin, I tap into a different frequency. And because I tap into a different frequency, I think I access different areas of thought. Now, follow with me. Sorry, I know I'm talking and walking, but walk with me, talk. Just listen to my train of thought, right? So, when I got this email from the Sharjah International Book Authority, I didn't even realize what had happened. Because I was like, okay, they picked me. That's an opportunity. And they said, guest authors will do things like university visits, talk on a panel, and you have all these people that I told you, like Nobel Prize winners and all these people, right? And I said, wow, this is really cool. But in my objective reality, in front of me, I didn't have that much, right? I didn't have anything going on, no clients, no prospects. So I had to figure out a way to say, okay, Marcus, you don't have everything you want right now, but this amazing thing is down the horizon. And whether things change or not for you between now and then, you need to organize yourself mentally for this opportunity to fully exploit it. So I'm gonna talk a bit more about that. So at the top right now, right? If you can see down there, you can see some storm systems there, but the sea is still pretty clear. So couldn't tell you exactly what's happening yet, but that's, you know, what's going on. I'm gonna do a 4-minute squat stretch for my back and then continue the video, right? Yeah guys, so I'm up at the top of where I walked to. This camera doesn't have any kind of zoom, but it gives you a pretty good view of, I can see, I believe, to Portmore from here, which is the other city across the water. And we can see like way down to other sides of the island. You can see the storm clouds moving in very, very slowly, but nothing is dropping yet. I can still see the sea, and having been just a native Jamaican who is always running in rain and watching rain, and I've been in a couple of storms, you know, this is very different in a sense that normally when they announce something and they say like tropical storm watch and they tell you Monday, like Wednesday you'd get the effects or whatever, but it's been a week and here very little effects, like light rain, drizzle. So it's very, very strange. And when you look over there, it's moving super slow in a different kind of way. I can't explain it. Normally when I'm up here, right, I will have to say, okay, I have 15 minutes before I can go home, I have 20 minutes before I can go home. I know when the rain's gonna fall, but when you look at that right there, it's a little different. Like, it's a lot of rain, but you don't know when it's gonna break. So as I said earlier, I'm not in control, you know, and we've done all the preparation that we can to prepare for this thing. So anyways, I'm gonna get back to talking about new dimensions and what this all means, this opportunity. You know, I mean, I'm hoping everything is relatively okay because I have to travel next week Monday, and I hope that's gonna be possible, because they say it's gonna be a couple of days of these kind of things, right? All right, so here we go. So this amazing opportunity came up, and I was telling you guys about Medellin and how when I went there I had this basically glimpse into a new dimension. This has to do with what's called proximity, because when you're in the proximity of the things and the people that inspire your spirit to expand, it starts to expand within you even when your objective reality hasn't changed. So I was in Medellin and my objective reality shifted a little bit. I had like wicked apartment, beautiful apartment in a beautiful neighborhood in El Poblado. It's a nice area in Medellin. I could walk and there are like coffee shops and nice restaurants, and you can jump in an Uber and get anywhere in like 5-10 minutes, and Ubers are cheap. And then, you know, it's just very nice weather. It's cool at night. Every time I go to Medellin, when I wake up in the morning, no, like I could go to bed at 4 a.m. I'm gonna wake up like 6:37, fresh and sharp as a tack, right? Something about Medellin elevates me. And because my spirit was expanding and I'm in these nice accommodations, I'm meeting new people every day at these language exchanges, I started to have a transition into a new frequency, right? Not a new dimension yet, but a new frequency. So the first time I went, my frequency went up. And then the second time I went, I had this sense of a new dimensionality, which I told you about in that story with Ciclovia. Bring it forward now to this Sharjah opportunity. And what I realized I had to do, as I said, is that number one, I have to go to this thing as a different person. Because it's one thing to take a trip to a cool place and come back, which I've done. It's another thing to step into a new dimension where you say to yourself, this is my new reality. So I've had many trips over the years where I went after things, like Bangkok. I went and shot a music video. You know, New York, you know, went there for like a decade every year trying to meet people and do things. And I'll take the trip and then I get all excited and I come home and I'm like, oh, I'm back in Jamaica and Jamaica doesn't have what New York has and blah, blah, blah. And I said that, I'm not going into a new dimension of reality. So when opportunity came, I didn't realize that on a spiritual level, I wasn't committed to the biggest outcome. So we're going to get into that. So let me go back to Sharjah now, right? So you might hear some dogs bark very soon. All right, so this book fair, third largest in the world, held in the UAE, United Arab Emirates, which as we all know is pretty much the wealthiest place on earth, oil money, dynasties of families and sultans and so on. And when they want you to be part of something, they treat you when they want you to be part of something, they treat you at the highest level. I saw this gate open, I thought these dogs are going to come. It's 5 dogs. When they want you to be part of something, they treat you at the highest level. So we're going to get business class flights on Emirates Airlines. We're going to be put in 5-star hotels. We're going to probably have a chauffeur that's driving us around when we need to get around. They said 3 meals a day. We're going to have access to networking dinners. They said a desert excursion. We're going to do a university visit. And what's amazing, we're also going to be doing a panel, right? We're going to be doing a panel. Myself and Kwame are going to be doing a panel as 2 Jamaicans called Culture in Motion. We're going to talk about storytelling and screenwriting. Amazing stuff. So I said, when you have an opportunity like this, you don't know who you're going to meet. And I've been writing for over 20 years, different books and just doing stuff in writing. And I've learned that the way the world works is that there are individuals out there that can change your life with one stroke of the pen or with one press of a phone call button. There are people that, if they like you, can put you into a complete new dimension of reality with one phone call or with one action. It's just a matter of how do you meet these people, which is where the idea of proximity comes into play. So when I looked at this opportunity, there are a few things that immediately came to mind. I said, you know what, I need to document this somehow. And I made a goal of trying to do a documentary and get funding for it, which so far has not happened. But I'm going to tell you about that. And then I also made a plan to try and partner with some brands, because that's what I do. I have always wanted to have an organic relationship with brands and marketing and travel, and I've always just wanted to do it. I've always just thought it would be cool to be taking a business class flight and dealing with a luxury brand, or like a luggage brand, or you're doing, I used to always think about that. There's a brand called Nomatic. I pitched them 3 times over a few years. I was like, I love your bags. I'm going backpacking here. Would you sponsor me? And it was they responded, which is great. But it didn't work out, I reached out to app companies that were doing app stuff, and I said, I'll be in New York, I'm very personable. I have this YouTube vlog and I want to test out your app at these different locations. I can provide pictures and video. And then the CEO, he responded to me, but it didn't work out. And there are all these pitches I've made because I really like the idea of doing these things to like promote products and work in that space. I just think it's cool. It's not about getting free stuff. It's like, I like mirroring opportunity with promotion. I don't own a bag company, but I am a personable guy. I have great experiences, and if I can review your bag in another country, or if I can do something like that, I always think it's really cool. Anyways, getting a little spun around. So anyways, with this whole Sharjah opportunity, I said, wow, we're going to have business class flights. We're going to be in these crazy hotels. We're going to be at the highest stage of the game as writers. And I said, this means that a brand like Mont Blanc could benefit. A brand like a camera company, the ministry of, certain ministries in Jamaica. I had all these ideas, and I said, there's so much potential here and so much noise that can potentially be made. And I started putting a few things in motion 3.5 months ago to try and get that done. And a lot of things didn't work out, Some contacts kind of disappeared. People didn't really respond to emails. But the pitch was made, and some momentum was made, and I feel good that I tried. But the reason why I'm adding this part of it is because if I didn't try to do this documentary thing, right? If I didn't try and go into a different frequency or dimension of what I'm trying to do, as I always have, I'll be doing myself a big disservice, right? I would not be doing myself the best service, because think about it. When all I had was a trip to New York or whatever, I would still pitch companies. When all I had was, the only leverage was, I'm doing something I think is interesting, would you want to partner with me? When that was my leverage, I would still pitch brands. So I said, this is the most leverage I've ever had in my whole life. I'm going to be on like probably 4 business class flights. I'm probably going to be in like a crazy hotel. I'm going to be around amazing people. I have this huge personality. I meet everybody. I'm going to meet like publishers and probably agents and actors and actresses and maybe some musicians, footballers. I don't know who I'm going to meet. Maybe I'll meet the Sultan. Who knows, right? Point I'm trying to make is that when you have an unprecedented opportunity, that is when you try your best to exploit it. Exploit it so that you can help yourself, and exploit it so that it also benefits others. But at the same time, at the end of the day, when people don't know you, the benefit is very subjective. But I did try. And the reason I mention this is because it's all part of the exercise to move into the new dimension, right? To get into a new phase of reality. And I said, if I make a film about this, if I get agencies on board, if I get brands on board, I'm going to stand on the soapbox and make a lot of noise about Jamaica. And we're going to show that Jamaican creatives and literary creatives are important, blah, 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 right? So that's the vision. And a lot of work was done around that area, but I hadn't gotten my ticket yet. I hadn't gotten my booking yet. And, it took some time for the SBA, which is the Sharjah Book Authority, to get back to me. And I got my ticket maybe like a week ago. But we were sending out press releases, me and Kwame. We lined up a radio interview. We've done all this stuff. We're trying to get the word out. But you know what happened? With most of the people we talked to, there's just no reaction. Right? So if I say to people, I'll say, hey, we're reaching out because we'd like to do a TV interview. Myself and our Jamaican author, we're taking this historic journey to United Arab Emirates. First time Jamaicans ever been brought there. We're going to have a panel, we're going to be doing da-da-da-da, right? And most people are kind of like, oh, okay, I'll let the team know, or there's no interest. And it made me understand that this is why we need to make the noise, because people never understand the power of these things. They understand that, if an album hits a billboard, people are like, yeah man, let's bring him on. If a TikToker goes viral, but you have 2 Jamaicans going to the UAE, being flown literally across the world for writing, and the excitement, the interest has not really been there. However, I say that to say that doesn't really bother me, because I had a 3-phase plan. I said there's going to be a pre-Sharjah, Sharjah, and post-Sharjah kind of like content strategy. Not anything stressful. I was just saying, before we go there, let's try and do some promotion. Let's try and do TV, radio. Let's talk to some people. Let's get the word out. Then when I'm there, I'll see what kind of content I can create. Because at this time, I don't know if I'm going to end up getting my film equipment. I don't know what's going to happen, right? So that was part 2. And I said I'd love to do a live interview from Sharjah when we're there, to show the Jamaican people, the 2 authors there in the Emirates. And then the 3rd phase would be when we come back. So when you come back now, is we'd work with the ministry, or ministries or organizations. We do workshops, and we'd start propelling the brand of writing and literature and all these things, and push the benefits towards Jamaica and ourselves on a whole, right? So everybody wins. That was the idea. But I also know that things can change, and especially with organizations, government organizations, especially brands, things may take time, or they may never happen, or it might happen after. So for example, you come back and people say, oh wow, we heard that you went to the UAE, we'd love to talk to you. So I see a lot of that potentially happening. There are all these things happening. But why am I explaining all of that to you? I'm explaining it to you because planning for what you don't know is the only way to start accelerating the energy towards what you want to happen. Meaning you try and do something and it may work and it may not work, but it moves energy forward because you contacted the brands, you reached out to your contacts, you spoke to the radio people. They are aware of you on a quantum level as well as a conscious level. So even if they didn't answer your interview, even if they didn't call you back, even if they didn't respond to emails or follow up with you, what ends up happening is that on a quantum level, the intention has gone far beyond where it was in the beginning. You've made the moves. You've sent out the videos. You've contacted the impossible brands to work with or whatever. And you're going to a very high point on the stage as a creative. You're going to a big point, right? So for me now, as I'm walking here, thinking about what's going to happen in the next couple of days, I'm just saying to myself, what's really important to understand here is that my opportunity hasn't changed. I wanted to highlight the most I could from it because that's the only way I get certain future benefits. Because nowadays, basically, you have to document everything. You're taking a trip, you document it. You're doing this, you document it. But really and truly, the good part about the situation is that even if I didn't do the documentary, even if I didn't get any brands on board, I'm still going to the United Arab Emirates as a Jamaican writer. I'm still doing a panel. I'm still going to be flying business class. Maybe I'll have to document it some other way, but I'm still doing it, right? And that's what's important because I can still show that in my own way. And as time passes, you can keep pushing that message of communication, right? So anyways, I've told you guys quite a bit. So what's the plan moving forward? All right, so the plan basically is see how this storm affects Jamaica. Hopefully it's not too bad, meaning, like you can actually drive around and move around and stuff, because I'll leave on Monday at 7:30 in the morning. No, sorry, Tuesday at 7:30 in the morning. That's a Tuesday the 4th of November. But dogs and dogs. But yeah, man, that's really it, It's really a lot of mental preparation because one of the most important things about massive opportunity, right, is that when someone sits down in front of you and asks you what you want and they're able to give it to you, you need to have the right answer. Let me say that again. When someone sits down in front of you and they have the ability to give you what you want, you need to know your answer. I want to tell you why this is very important, because I'm just going to use like a stupid, very simple example. You saved a billionaire's life and he says, how can I help you? Right? Now some people be like, oh, I don't know. They might say, okay, well, maybe you can give me some money. Maybe you can help a charity. Maybe they don't know. And then it doesn't mean the billionaire is not going to help you. But what do you want the most right now in your reality? Maybe some people say to him, all right, I know you're a billionaire and you could definitely probably give me a massive endowment. But here's what I want, I would like an endowment, but I would also like the instruction in how to grow it 10 times in the next 5 years. So I want you to give me a certain sum of money and show me how to grow it using all that you know, or putting me on to the right people, right? Now, that's a easy hypothetical because everyone's like, well, a billionaire, right? Which is why I said it's a stupid example, but it's the easiest to understand. But the way I'm thinking about it is that in real life, it's a little bit different. It's more like you may meet somebody that can shift the needle, but you don't even know you're talking to the needle mover. That's what I find how life tends to be. You need to be able to think of what you want to such a point that when the right people come around, you are always prepared. Someone is not going to sit down in front of you like the billionaire and say, okay, I'm going to write you a blank check because you saved my life. That could happen, but that's a 0.00 whatever percentage, right? More likely than not. more than likely what will happen is that when the intention is in the right place and you're on the right frequency, you're going to meet the people that can help you the most in the moment that you need the help. And they sometimes are the ultimate person, or they're the person that takes you to the next person to get you where you need to go. And when that person asks you what you're trying to do, you need to be aware enough to understand that this might be the person that can help you. So you can't be afraid of saying what you want. You can't really be too afraid of saying what you want, you know what I mean? Because that's one of the things about wanting certain things for yourself at a certain level, is that, this thing right here, is that if you don't know what you want, right? If you really don't know what you want, you're gonna miss out on the people around you that can help you get what you need. You're just not asking the right question. You could have a friend who is an AI expert, or you could have a friend who is owns a like an events company, who is a good friend. All you have to do is ask them the right question, because that friend with the events company could put you in touch with somebody that you need to talk to that they may know. Your friend with the AI company could probably help you automate a process that'll completely revolutionize your approach to your own business or something. You get what I'm saying? Point I'm trying to make is that you might meet someone, and because they're not exactly doing what you're doing, you might say, well, I don't know if I need them. So I want you to think like that, because for me now, and this kind of opportunity, the way I'm thinking about it in my brain, practically, is that I say to myself, you are going to meet the right person, right? It's just a matter of what are you going to tell them. You don't know when you're going to meet them, you don't know how, but what is your ultimate intention? What have you been working towards for the last 20 years? And a friend of mine that I met up with, he said it very clearly to me, because when I told him, I didn't tell everybody about this, but I mean, I'm leaving now, it doesn't matter. But when I told him, I said, yeah, you know, I'm going to the UAE on this trip, and he said to me, he said, Marcus, I don't think you've processed what has happened. I can see that you're just walking one foot in front of the other, trying to make the dots connect. And in a moment, I was like, no, I have processed what's going on. I know what I'm doing. But he was right, in the sense that I was still trying to get the documentary off the ground. I was not hearing back from some very important contacts about things. I hadn't done any brand deals yet. I hadn't gotten my booking, my flight yet. I just didn't know anything that was going on. And I wasn't panicking, but I just didn't have a lot of information. I just knew I was going at some point in the future, right? So I say that to say, when someone sits in front of you and you are in the proximity of extremely powerful people, you need to be able to encapsulate what you want to say to them, whatever your intention is. Because that person may just say yes, or they may say, oh, I love your energy, let's talk. People don't realize that proximity is power. In this world right now of influencers and followers and all this stuff, people forget that J.K. Rowling did not have a mailing list. Stephen King did not have a mailing list, right? The biggest authors in history did not have mailing lists. They were just good writers who met the right people, the right agents. And I believe that if you meet the right people in writing, in music, in film, whatever, you can get things off the ground. It's just a matter of who you know. So if you meet the right people, what is your intention? So that's what I've been thinking about the last couple months, because I have had my own personal struggles, and there are always things you want. You want better health, you want more resources, you want. But the thing is that on a spiritual level, when you're constantly saying want, you're emphasizing the lack of what you have. So if you want better health, you're actually focusing on the fact that you don't have the health you want. So it's a little tricky. You can desire improved health, but you have to try and see yourself as having it. So it's a way of framing the energy, right? And I know it sounds weird to some people who might be sick, and trust me, no one has experienced this more than me, because when it comes to being in a bad place with my body and my health and my physique, I mean, there are just days where you just rage, you're just angry, and you're just sad. and all you want is to feel a little bit better. So there's nothing wrong with the wanting. I'm talking on the quantum level, on the spiritual level. Eventually, the way you must communicate to yourself is that you are in possession of it, and that everything is leading you towards possession of what you want. Because once you talk in that kind of language, things shift, and major things shifted for me. I almost got in a relationship with a company that could have helped me, almost. But when I first thought about the idea of contacting this company that could help me with my health stuff, it was impossible, like literally impossible. It was in another country, it was in Medellin. I had no way to get there, I didn't have the funds or the resources, and the universe just rearranged everything to put me in the position of meeting the CEO of the company, who I met at the same thing I mentioned about 25 minutes ago, which is Ciclovia. I saw him running in Ciclovia and stopped him, and he knew who I was on. I ended up touring the facility that I had been watching on screens every night for like 9 months. So it was disappointing when it didn't work out, but it reinforced my belief that it's possible, right? Energy and intention is possible. I kept saying to myself that I don't want to be at this company. I saw myself at the company. I saw myself in the presence of the CEO. I saw myself having the meetings. I saw myself getting the treatment, right? And I said, I don't care what limitations I have or cost or whatever. I was like, it is happening. I'm getting in the room. And I maintained that thought process for quite some time, even through great struggles. So it shows me that it is possible, even though it didn't work out, because if I can do that, once my frequency goes up and I enter a different dimension, it can definitely happen, right? So that's where my mind is, and that's why I said this opportunity that's coming up, it's just far more than you get some business class flights and you go into a fancy country. No, it's like a shift into an absolute new dimension. Wow, the weather really cleared up. Yeah, this storm is, I don't know what's going on, because today looks like a pretty normal day. And here's my take on it. I'm going to go back to what I'm talking about. But my take on this whole thing is that I would love for this to just go away. Everybody got a really big scare. They saw that your personal health and your life and your family is your priority, and we should always focus on that. I'm wondering if this whole Melissa thing is just a big reminder that what's most important is your health and your safety, and feeling good about life and not worrying about everything. Maybe that's what it means, because look at the sky. It was not looking like that when we started this video, right? Alright, so back to what I was saying. So I saw what happened with my intentions with that impossible situation. So with this trip, which came out of nowhere, and it is the highest stage of the game, you know, I'm going to highlight some points for you that shocked me when I really thought about it. I'm doing a panel in the UAE. I thought I was going to be on a panel with some other authors. You know, they just drop you in, maybe like 5 people on a panel and you talk. But it's literally myself, another Jamaican author, doing a panel with a moderator. That's it. So that means that anybody who wants to see the Jamaicans talk and interact with them will be there. It's a form of pre-selection, right? And not only that, by being on a panel, by being a guest author, you are there with a lot of pre-qualification. Does that make sense? In other words, whoever you meet is gonna view you differently because you were brought there. I didn't have a pass, I just wasn't networking at a mixer. They brought me there, they put me up, they flew me there. I have value. And I had to think about that recently. I was like, Marcus, they invested in you. There was a list, apparently, that my colleague got sent, and I was picked. I was chosen. So you have to look at things for what they are. If you have that kind of value, it must mean something. So that's where my mind is, and that's why I've been training my mind to be like, you know what, I have value, and this value has a meaning, and I'm channeling going into a new dimension, right? Not just taking a trip, not just a random opportunity, because the worst thing is to take a trip somewhere, get super inspired and excited, and you come home and like nothing can drive the engine. And that happened to me when I went to Medellin twice. because Medellin is an amazing city with all this stuff, and like my whole lifestyle there is different. And I come home and my lifestyle just changes, you know, because when I was in Medellin the first time, I think I ate out every day. Food wasn't expensive, so I could eat at a restaurant every day, like every day. And then the food there is different, so I could eat different kinds of food. Here, I couldn't tell you the last time I went to a restaurant here. Maybe like on my birthday. So maybe once or twice a year I'm at a restaurant in Jamaica. In Medellin, in 30 days, I was probably at restaurants 25 days out of 30, right? So different dimensions. But now that I'm doing this crazy thing at the highest level of the game in a way, or the highest level for me right now, it's all about massive intentions and a massive vision for what you want to achieve. And my friend told me this recently about some of the most powerful families in the world, how one thing they teach their kids is to have monstrous vision. So you can't just go there and say to yourself, oh, you know, I'm just gonna do my best, and I hope the panel goes well, and I hope you know, everything is okay, and you know, da da da. You can't talk like a timid mouse. You can't talk like a timid mouse. I wonder if this guy need help. No, I'm alright, man. Let me check. You alright there, bossy? You can lift it? Alright. Hey man, just had to help this guy put his generator in his car. Would love to have a generator as well, but down the line we're gonna have all those things. So as I was saying, I think the last thing I was talking about was the fact that you need to know your intentions in these ridiculously powerful situations, and you have to have an understanding and a willingness within yourself to think of a grand vision. It has to be bigger than you can even conceptualize, and it took me a couple weeks to realize that the vision I had for myself was limited to the perspective I currently live in, which is not bad. What I mean is, like, you might think your vision is big and it's not as big as you think. So you might say, okay, somebody might say, okay, I want to be a best-selling author, or somebody might say, I want to be a successful business person. And another person might say to them, okay, so how much are you earning? And I say, oh, 5,000 US a month, right? Which after taxes is maybe like 2,000 plenty, or 3,000 a little bit, right? So then someone's going to say, okay, so to be a successful business person, you want to earn $30-something thousand a year. And then a person might say, now that you put it that way, it doesn't seem like that much. Because when you put the figure of $5,000 a month out there, it sounds like a big figure maybe if you're making 1,000. But to go beyond where you can even conceptualize, it would probably be like $50,000 a month. Where you're just like, no, that's impossible. But that's a vision beyond the vision you're able to conceive. And this is one of those things that I think of relative to wherever it is you're trying to go. Because I'm using money as an example. Money is always the easiest example. It doesn't have to be money. It could be health. It could be fitness. But really, it is about going beyond where you believe you can go beyond. I'm going to give you another example. I remember when I used to train for like a 5K and when I ran a half marathon. And I remember that I only had a concept in my mind of a marathon being the longest you could run in a race. I didn't know about ultra marathons. And I remember when I first heard about ultra marathons, I said, what? I said, what is an ultra marathon? I was like, wait, somebody can run 50 something miles in a day? I didn't even know that was a thing. It was beyond what I even knew was possible. Everything I knew was a marathon, much less multiple marathons in a day type of event. So vision. So I said, wow, what kind of person would train for that? What's their mindset like? And it got me thinking about training for ultra marathons at the time. This is years ago. And what I'm saying about that, which is powerful and interesting, is that it made me realize there are just all these different levels of everything. There's a person out there who wants to sell 10,000 books a month as an author. There's one whose commitment is to sell 1 million or die trying, 1 million copies. And they want to do it in a year. So whatever your vision is, I realize it has to be ridiculously big. And when the right person comes around you, who wants you to succeed, then you share that vision with them. All right, almost back home. Yeah, so I'm back home right now, and the walk is over. Helped a guy out with his generator to put in his car. Man, it'd be good to have a generator right now. Putting that on the list, you know? Have to have a generator in the near future. But yeah, man, as I was saying, if you follow me on this whole journey, when great opportunity presents itself, you must also have great vision. And in the past, I haven't always done that, and it's just something I learned over time, which is why I think it's very important, if you have people on a similar journey, to really try and listen to what they're saying, because there's nothing like personal experience, which I found, which is that there's certain things you have to learn on your own, because you only really acknowledge information when it's internalized a certain way. So you can't say to somebody like you're talking to a young man and you say, no one's girl looking at you, just say hi. If he's never really said hi to a girl, all he's fearing is rejection and all this stuff in his brain. He has no internalized experience yet. But if he says hi to her and she's pleasant, and he does that with other girls in the future, then that will be internalized as a thing and it won't bother him anymore. But that first time trying to do something, you can't just take it on information. So for me, over the decades, as I've tried different things, I've learned different levels of barriers I've had. Sometimes you have a self-perception barrier. You might say to yourself, oh, I'm not good enough, or why would they want me? Then you have a incorrect, or what I call misaligned perspective, where you're thinking of the wrong things. You're thinking the world is against you. You're thinking this, thinking that, right? Then you have opportunities that present themselves that you didn't realize were massive opportunities, or you have things that happen after massive opportunities that you didn't exploit. So for example, there's a time when I did a big project. I didn't realize at the time I could have just used that momentum to start an agency. I could have bought some equipment. It could have been small. I could have bought some equipment and I could have just kept doing what I was doing, but I'd never done what I did before. I didn't even know what the next step would be because I didn't have that kind of vision. So sometimes when things happen, I realize I did not have the vision for the steps afterwards. When I went to Bangkok, I had the vision to make the music, manifest a trip to go to Bangkok and then shoot the music video, but I didn't have a plan for afterwards, not a proper plan. I didn't know about doing a launch, and I didn't even feel like people would come to the launch. As much as the effort was high that I put in, I realized that my vision did not go beyond a certain point. And what I realized about most of these things that you're going to try and do in your life is that you need to know the next 10 to 15 steps, predict them, and then keep adding steps as you go along. So if you're going to be doing something big, what are 5 to 10 potential steps, and plan for those in your mind and in your spirit, because you just never know. Don't just try and meet somebody and have one thing you want, because you're not going to plan for the next thing. You kind of have to be ready for things that have not come yet, and you have to prepare for that in your mind first. So I'm here, Kingston we're in this weird weather condition. We could be hit by the worst storm in the history of Jamaica right now, or it could just dissipate and go away. But I still have to try and focus on the opportunities to come, and I still have to keep my mind grounded. And that's one of the weirdest things about opportunities, because my opportunity is just a week away that I've been preparing 3.5 months for. This storm is coming, maybe, and it will pass, and we will survive. But will your vision survive the storm within you? And that is the thing that I said has to change. I said I have to move into a new dimension, because I can't just do something and it's cool and stop. You have to do something, elevate yourself to a certain reality of life, and stay there, so that becomes your objective reality. What you see in your mind is what you see in front of you. Alright, so I'm going to try and edit this video and upload it, because as I said, I don't know when things are going to start. Big up yourself, bless up, and if you're watching from Jamaica, you don't know, wishing you all the best if things take a turn for the worse. But if you take a turn for the best, just hug up your family, hug up your friends, and just remember what's important, which is what's in front of the mirror. You see me? Bless up.